Thank you so much for letting us come here to interview you and talk to you about your life experiences and some of your thoughts, share your thoughts. We are here with Reema Khan, and she is the chairwoman and CEO of Green Sands Equity, and she does wear several hats, and we'll get into that. My name is Vera Mijojlic, and I am the founder and director of the Southeast European Film Festival in Los Angeles. So as I mentioned, let's start on this. When I researched about you, I found out that you do wear a lot of hats. So how do you really balance that, changing those hats here and there?
I guess all of us wear many hats, and perhaps not all of us wear professionally many hats. But I think of my life in a few areas. One is, how do I add value to the world and also, make a living? And the other one is things that don't make me any money, but where I get to spend money.
Right.
So one is to make money, the one is to spend money. So of course that automatically ends up being the philanthropic and a different hat. I think that if you really want to live a full life, the way I think of it is to really engage at every level in all the kinds of aspects of our world, whether it's government or it's policy, motherhood, arts, all of that. So yeah, I think that it's natural to wear many hats. I think just wearing one hat and you're having your entire identity be tied to just the one thing you do is very much an industrial revolution kind of a mindset.
200 years old?
Yeah, so it's just the whole idea that you just do the one thing and therefore you have value. And I think the longer we live, the more time and resources we have. And time has gotten deeper, if not longer, So we can do a lot. It makes sense.
Well, you certainly do. You're an example of that. You're an investor. You look at different proposals, different companies. You're involved in diplomacy. You're involved in philanthropy. So you do get to meet a lot of people. And what are your thoughts on when you look at things today? Because it is a very complex world, especially for young people, and you're a mother as well. So what are your thoughts on, advising how would you navigate this landscape if you were now in their shoes?
I feel like the world's always been complex, and the level of complexity that you see in the world and experience in the world is very much proportional to the level of depth that you have in you and the intelligence that you have in you and the desire that you have to really go deep and explore. So I think that the world has always been complex for people who wanted it to be. And I think that's a gift. It's not complexity is not a problem or a burden. I just feel that the next generation is just going to have a very different world than we have. Because in our world, it was very much about being data-driven and being analytical. Now that a lot of that is going to be accessible to pretty much everyone because of AI, I feel that the old-fashioned things about intuition and a sense of humor and instincts, and then your values as to what they are and being philosophical again will count for a lot more. And so I would say for my children, for my daughter and my son, I would just wish for them to embrace complexity and go even deeper in every aspect of their life and really live a richer life and embrace it with courage.
Oh, courage is important, and you do have quite an amount of courage. Your approach, your thinking, when you approach a project, or somebody's pitching you, or it's a proposal, what are the factors, what are the things that you focus on initially? So tell us a little bit, the tips that you can share about what you have found to work for you.
First thing to say is I'm still learning. We're all still learning. And I hope we all continue to do that, otherwise we wouldn't improve. The first thing about being an investor is that it's not just me alone, right? So I have a firm with a full team, and we have various verticals that we invest in. So we have a specialist for each of those sectors who's a sector expert per se. So they have done a lot of work in that area. They understand the technology, they understand how it ties with the world today, and not just today, how it ties with the world that we're trying to build. So a good investor is a lot more about where they want the world to go and how it needs to be. And that's not about predicting where things are going to end up given where we are. It's more about what you want it to be. And honestly, that's not as data-driven as it is value-driven, because the data will be created by you based on the choices you make.
Just talking a little bit more about the tech sector, I have found out that you have made interesting comments about overfunded research at certain universities and about the Google problem. But also I have found out that there is talk about a certain amount of AI fatigue. So these intricacies of this world, you have to stay up to date with everything in so many different aspects. So how do you do that? Who do you rely on, and where does a certain investor instinct come into play?
First of all, you look for leadership.
Yes.
And a true leader is someone who isn't entirely focused on just the one solution to build in a certain way, like, not one product to build, but to solve a problem in general. And they have the ability to pivot. They know how to build a team, and they know how to build loyalty and to align people around a mission, and people will walk through walls for them. So that's the biggest thing. And then the two other ones that I often say in a very simplistic way, I say, look, every company has 3 risks: the technology risk, capital risk, and execution risk. And capital risk is something that we can help to mitigate, and we have to look at it as I'm not the only investor, because I'm not the big Sequoia of the world and not BlackRock of the world. So we have to make sure that whenever we are investing in a company, we're looking at the leadership to see if they're able to raise the funding and to be able to tell the story, and they are going to be able to build that camaraderie among the investors around them. So we care a lot about that. And when it comes to execution, that's measurable. That's more so you can have KPIs, you can look at it and say that, they know how they're to do this or not. And that's from experience, I suppose, that you can judge. And when it comes to leadership, I think those are the kind of qualities where I don't know about that part being quantifiable. Sometimes you really have to look at someone in the eye, and they've never done it.
Do you rely on your instincts?
I do, very much so, very much so. Something you said about AI fatigue, I was going to say, no, we can't do that because it's too early to get tired. We're just getting started. So I don't think that there is or should be AI fatigue right now. It isn't fully even developed to where we want it to be, and we have to be patient with it. And I often say that even bubbles, when people say, oh, it's overvalued, first of all, I think it's fine. It is a little bit overvalued, but even bubbles serve a purpose, because everyone, if they're so pragmatic and so measured about everything that they'll do, you will not end up with these big long shots. As far as AI adding to productivity, and let's just back up a little bit and think about what is more important in this world. Is it just productivity? Or is it also bringing change in our culture and our growth as a civilization? And I think the latter is more important than the former. Because I was talking to an economist friend of mine, and I got into an argument saying, oh, this is going to be so important, AI is going to change everything. And then he said, well, that's what they said about the internet. But if you actually look at the markets, as far as productivity gains, if you measured it, it is still in the single digits, and if the way they quantify and they look at it. So it's not so much about how much is changing in the markets. So I do think that productivity is one way to measure it, but the bigger part is how dramatically it's going to change the culture.
Well, that leads us into your other activities where you try to make a difference as well, in different ways, in different means. And that's, diplomacy. And you are an ambassador to the UN for the Royal Academy of Sciences. How do we find in a competitive world that we can still collaborate, and especially in the scientific or tech field?
I do feel that competition is important, and the entire structure of our society, especially the business world, is built upon that. And capitalism especially really favors the brave who are in competition. But competition helps build great products for sure. But collaboration and cooperation is what builds great civilizations. And I feel that you need both. I do think that in this competitive world, geopolitically, that we are in today, collaboration and cooperation has become very scarce. It's funny how everyone is trying to make alliances that only favor them.
Yes.
And no one, just remember that the other side will not make that alliance unless they thought it favored them. So somebody's wrong in this, right? Yes. They can't both be right that it favors them.
No.
So let's not try to be so smart about it. With the United Nations, it's actually became very fashionable to say we don't need the UN anymore. And it's...
No, we do need it.
Right, they say it all the time.
Place,
it's everywhere. People say we don't really need the UN anymore. We can now we have internet, we can talk to each other. There is something really beautiful and sacred about this organization,
Yes.
where every country in the world, the countries I don't even know the names of, have a seat at the table.
Yes, yes.
And in that moment, they are significant, they're important, they have a voice. And so I do honor it. I think it's great. As far as I'm concerned, I have found a lot of cooperation. Yes, we have run into issues here and there where it's about who gets more importance, who gets credit for what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's more about work getting done. As far as collaboration on an international level when it comes to science and technology, that's absolutely necessary. And I do worry about that. We are hurting each other and ourselves, and I hope that it comes back. But at the same time, even cooperation and collaboration is not a perfect game. There are people who will take advantage of it. There are some who will benefit more from it, and some who will benefit less from it. And so you have to set some rules around it. And I think world has a way of going through its ups and downs and finding balances. So I think it'll be fine. I'm an optimist at my core.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so this can't be forever.
Right. So going back to your early influences, first of all, what drew you to this field? Was it always a straight line that took you there?
And I came from an entrepreneurial family. You know, my father had 3 brothers. One was in the shipping industry, one was in the oil industry, and another one was in the trading industry. But they all had specific things they built, their own businesses, right, with revenue. So when I said I wanted to be an investor, I said, wait, you're going to bet on other people's ideas? Yes, sure, every now and then we do that, but why don't you do something of your own? I think there's a humility that comes with knowing that there is just so much that you can do with your own work, and by empowering others, you can do so much more. And I felt that that was a gift I had, that I never lost the ability to fall in love with and be impressed with others.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear.
But at the same time, I have the business savvy mindset to be able to understand how to best expedite their success and support them. So I think that's how I ended up in this area. Also, I just am a nerd and I love to learn, and I love looking at companies and ideas and technologies that I've never knew about, and now I can learn about it. So yeah, I'm a kid in a candy store. I love it.
Did you have any mentors, maybe at the university? Were there any women that you looked up to?
Actually, you know, I grew up in a very male-dominated family in a way.
Well, we all did.
Right. Although my mom actually was a comparative literature professor and a very famous author, so she was very successful. But what I mean by that is in the business world, right? Not in academia. So somehow, though, they raised me not to think that I have to behave as a girl or a woman. I was allowed to have the same dreams and aspirations as they had, as men.
So then you were fortunate.
I was very fortunate.
You were
fortunate.
fortunate.
I was fortunate. At the same time, I have to say, the first time that you hear of a woman becoming a president or prime minister, I remember that resonated with me as in, oh, that's possible. That's great.
Yes.
Girls get to do that. So the people that I look up to as mentors were not necessarily even professional women. It's the kind of women who had strength in character, even as housewives. I think anyone who lives a life deliberately and is clear about the choices they're making rather than doing them out of custom or tradition are people I admired. And I had a lot of very strong women like that in my life, both in my family and among my teachers and whatnot.
And that brings me to the next thing, the Green Sands Prize that you endowed. And I've seen, I believe, just the names of women. That, so here we go. So we're going back to women. We're interested, not that, we love our men, that's no problem, but we want to really see how we can, and also recognize women, not just uplift them, but recognize them, because it's a hard road to get to where the women that you have honored with the prize that they travel.
So the Green Sands Prize I started because I don't know, I guess when I was young and everyone's trying to win a prize. Everyone wants to get on a list.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't really care about that. I would rather make my own list and decide who deserves it. Initially, I thought it was going to be more of a scholarship where you would have women who have shown some promise in their work and they have a lot of aspiration, and then we can give them a scholarship and they can continue to work on what they're working on. Think of it as a grant or something. But then I realized that wasn't, I could do that, but it was also important, like you said, to recognize the women who got there.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times the women's prizes, this is not a women's prize, by the way.
Right. I got that.
Yeah, it's a prize, but it just happens to be that the people who won it so far have been women. A lot of prizes go to men for all of their existence. It's always been men who've been winning those prizes, but they were never announced as men's prizes. So in this one, it just happens to be that it's a woman every time, but it isn't a women's prize.
But there's also the SETI Institute that you're involved with. And so that brings us to dreams and your dreams, because anything concerning NASA's exploration and investigation of the universe, and especially what I read, it's like the possibility of life beyond Earth, or even if it's us going someplace else. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what your dreams are with when you talk to these people who are investigating the boundaries and the new frontiers out there?
Yeah, that's the whole point. There are no boundaries, right? So I like the people who are pushing the boundaries. I mean, this is actually really simple. If I think about it, it stems from everything stems from something personal usually, right? So I felt like I never really belonged in the cultures and the places where I was at. And I always sit here and say, I wonder if there's another girl on another planet who's thinking the same thing. It's just a simple, small thing. And of course, I always looked at the stars with a lot of fascination. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a physicist.
There you see, you were dreaming out there.
I was, yeah. And I think that going into space for me now is less about trying to go to another planet or anything. I think that was a dream I had of just being in the void. Because the biggest thing apparently when you go to space is that you notice is how dark it's out there.
Yeah.
And how quiet it is. And I think it gives you an appreciation for where we are with the pale blue dot, the way Carl Sagan said. As far as trying to understand if there is life in the universe, I mean, that's a very valid question, right? And I suppose by now we know that there is for sure. We're not the only planet that has the conditions necessary for the existence of life. It's more a question of can we make contact and should we make contact, and who knows. But the important part is, I think in exploring that, we're understanding more and more about our own world and why do we even exist? How come none of the other planets around us seem to have life and we do? What's special about us? What made life come to be on this planet? And I think those are there's astrobiology, there's astrophysics, there's astronomy, there's also technosignatures versus biosignatures. So there are many, many approaches to understand our place in the universe. And I think all of them are fascinating. So I started going to SETI Institute's talks, and at some point, I just walked in again to the office and I talked to the CEO and I said, can you explain to me how your organization works? And I wrote it down in my little notepad and I thought, I think I can help. And I went back and I came back with a plan of some ideas and they said, oh, this is great. And then I got more involved. Eventually I did more work for them before I joined the board. And then they said, why don't you just officially join the board? Because people already asked, like, who is this person who's always doing this for you? So I said, okay, fine, I will. And then I gave them the first few dollars to start an endowment. And then later on, we were very lucky to have Franklin Antonio leave us his bequest, hundreds of millions of dollars, and now we have a pretty substantial endowment.
Great.
And SETI's work is mostly funded by NASA grants. We still have that as well. So it's just a very meaningful organization, and philosophically it makes sense to understand your place in the universe. And then scientifically, I feel that in any work that we do, the why needs to be there. And I think SETI is a lot more about the why than the how.
This leads us to the question of legacy. Your legacy and the legacy that you hope that you will have with all the different companies, people, projects, ideas that you have invested in, whether that was investing the capital or investing knowledge or investing just support or collaborating like you do through the organizations like the SETI Institute. So what are your thoughts on legacy?
When it comes to legacy, I think legacy is not something that people talk about. It's the road you pave for others. And it's not that you already know where you want to go and they have to follow that road. It's just making it easier for them to be able to build their roads. I guess the thing is how I do it is my legacy, not what I do. Great. And I think that the important part of that is that I do absolutely believe that it's not just competition, but also cooperation. And I think the other part of it is that I really think that intuition and having clear values as to why you're building and towards what is very important. And I hope that is my legacy, that people focus not just on predicting the future, but trying to create one and have clarity on where they're going.
And so just a few quick questions where we want to get rapid answers.
Okay.
So one would be any city that inspired you, that you remember, or that you recently visited, that you said, my God, this city resonates with me.
Gosh, that's a hard one. There's so many that I would just go with the more recent ones, I suppose. I always love Florence. I think that the history and the art of it is really beautiful.
Food, what type of food do you like?
Oh gosh, I would say that this is so contradictory, but I love anything that is European, food-wise, because I don't like things that are too strong in spices and whatnot. And the ingredients need to be good.
How about an activity? What activity do you enjoy outside of your work?
I love running.
Running? Okay, great. What's your favorite color?
Blue, but as I'm getting older, it's also green.
What season in the year is your preferred season?
Probably fall. I can't handle the heat.
Yeah, I felt fall. Any sports that you like watching?
Yeah, I love watching tennis, soccer, football, basketball, love the Warriors, all of that.
Do you plan to come to the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028?
Absolutely. How can
Yes?
we not? It's right next door, of course.
Yes. Oh, do you cook?
I don't, but I know how to order. I've never been.
But you just made a fantastic salad.
I did, but it
So
comes.
you're a salad
it came
queen?
with instructions, I suppose. I suppose so.
Yeah.
I'm actually really good at ordering things. I never really learned to cook. Even my mom wasn't very interested in it. So I grew up with other people cooking. So I'm not a very good cook.
Yeah, but you can choose well.
I can choose very well.
Yes.
Exactly. I can
Yeah.
put together a great meal and a great dinner party.
Just for the last one, very quickly. You have participated in the summit that Honor Foundation organized in Beverly Hills. So what were your impressions and what do you see for the vision of the Honor Foundation going forward? Because it's so much about empowering women, but also kind of bringing the new value to the table. What are your thoughts?
You know, it's funny, when I was younger, I used to try to avoid women's things because I just associated them with just a bunch of women complaining about how the world is unfair.
Yes.
And I would rather focus on building something, and I really avoided them. I feel that there was also a generational difference of women who came before us who felt they had to go through so much and it was so difficult to get there that they looked at you and thought, well, then you should continue to suffer until you earn the place to be
Yes.
here. But I feel that now in this generation where I am, women are thinking, no, opening doors for each other. And
Yes.
it's wonderful and it's a beautiful thing. And I hope that no woman is ever too big or too important or special to not make time for such events and such things. And what I appreciate most about this summit is it's very diverse, not just in terms of the backgrounds of women, but in terms of the professions of women. So here in the Valley, you know, you'll get a lot of tech. You'll get some healthcare, you'll get all of those things. If you go to the UN, you get a lot of diplomacy and government, you know. You go to the SETI Institute, it's pure science. But when I went to this, I get Olympic athletes, I get army, you know, and military women who are in positions of power and leadership. I get to meet artists. I get to meet women who are working in the beauty business, something I never see. It's amazing to see how every discipline within it has excellence, and this summit seems to capture the most excellent women from each of those disciplines. I think we don't stay so focused on what we want all the time. We will never learn. So I think going to a summit like this is less about what can I get out of it for my business, but it's more about, oh, I wonder what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah. We hope that you will continue to stay involved.
Absolutely.
And we will continue the conversation and we will revisit some of the issues, including Switzerland and Italy. Great countries. Thank you so much, Reema. Really, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate your willingness
No, my pleasure.
to open your home for us. So to be continued.
Thank you. Thank you so much.